Are you one of those exorcists we constantly see on TV? Are you a charlatan? Is there good money in this business? In the new episode of Can't Ask, we are with Mustafa Bozda. He is a metaphysics expert. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Because of an accident I had when I was 2 years old, I entered the metaphysical realm. It was involuntary. Everything started to unfold after that.
How did you first encounter religions?
Due to an accident I had when I was 2 years old, my inner eye was opened. That's how I first met jinns.
What kind of an accident was it?
I fell onto the food cooking on the stove. I was 2 years old at the time. Of course, there were times when I came face to face with death. I was in and out of a coma. After that, after I was discharged from the hospital, images of the metaphysical realm started to appear. It started in my childhood. Of course, a child has no fear. I wasn't afraid of the things I saw. There were appearances like snakes or things like that. Then gradually I started to see human-sized shapes. Of course, this started to happen later. For example, when I was 13, 14 years old. After that, different visions started to appear. All of the visions were turning out to be true. We were checking them. Of course, I didn't know much about these spiritual sciences at that time. I tried to overcome my fears, but I couldn't. I couldn't get used to it. I tried to turn it into an advantage with some formulas. Thank God I succeeded. It took quite a while.
How did you first realize that what you saw was not from this world?
Now it was very difficult to differentiate because I was a child. I thought everyone saw what I saw. Of course, later in life I realized that this was not the case. How can I describe it? Like a condensed cigarette smoke. Let's think of a human silhouette. Silhouettes are black shadows from cigarette smoke. After that, they started to take shape gradually over time.
What do you need to study to do this job?
Now, first of all, you need to be trained by an expert, by a competent person. So if you try to do this work with books on your own, we know and see many people doing it. They don't end up well. Their mental health deteriorates. Serious psychological disorders arise. So opening the door to that realm means being able to cope with that realm. It means you have to have the knowledge. You have to have a teacher who can support you. If you don't have these, when you enter alone, you harm yourself. It is suicide.
So is this a profession?
Now, we don't know exactly how much the laws in Turkey allow it. In other European countries, it has also been turned into a profession. For example, today astrology is practiced under the name of spiritual counseling.
Do you see it as a profession?
I'm not really sure. In order for it to become a profession, laws need to be established first. After it is accepted, of course it can become a profession.
Is this a profession that runs in the family?
No, it is because of the accident I had. Of course, there are ones that run in the family. For example, a man's father or grandfather, grandmother or great-grandmother may have been involved in this business after his death. Since those beings live long lives, they can move on to his grandfather or anyone else dealing with that work basically, to whoever is compatible with his star. Whether they can communicate is another thing. In order to communicate, he needs to take lessons from a specialized person. He also has to enter into ascetic practices. He needs to abstain from animal products, which we call abstinence.
Is all this being done to communicate with jinns?
No, it is not only about jinns. Jinns are simple beings. Let me explain it this way. Now you will ask me if they are simple beings. How can they rule over people? In this case, the simplicity of human beings is the key. The Holy Quran has been sent to humans by Allah Almighty. People who live in accordance with Islam and the Quran do not see these things. But a person who is far from Islam, who is in disbelief and shirk every day, will of course be haunted by such beings. I cannot think of any verse in the Holy Quran at the moment. Those who partake in usury will rise as though they've been afflicted by the devil. If we try to explain this verse, it will take a long time. There is a void in a person who detaches himself from the essential principles of Islam. So there is a shield of protection that we call aura. When Allah Almighty removes that aura shield, the person is left defenseless. And something that is defenseless is haunted by jinns who are enemies of humans. They take possession of the person by first messing with their mental health and then their physical health. It can even lead to cancer.
Does everyone who goes insane do so because of jinns?
Not everyone, but some of it is due to psychology. Let's say 2% is psychology. 98% of it is due to jinns. For example, why don't people who receive psychological treatment in hospitals today get better? They are given drugs and electroshocks. Why is there no concrete result? 70% of epilepsy cases are caused by jinns. This is the reason why electricity is generated in the brain. The energy of the jinn is electricity.
Can you treat them?
Of course, but our treatment is not instantaneous because we engage in esoteric practices. It takes a week to 10 days.
Are you one of those exorcists we constantly see on TV?
No,
I mean, is it right to call you an exorcist?
they are witch doctors. It's like, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it to you. What I do is not sorcery, it is esoteric numerology. There's a huge difference between me and witch doctors. Witch doctors summon the jinn and ask questions. They get information about the patient's condition. They learn from the jinn what to do. But we take pen and paper and write down the patient's information. We make calculations according to this esoteric science. So we come up with our own formula.
How did your family react to the work you do?
At first, of course, they found it very risky. Naturally, they did everything they could to save me. When they couldn't get a result, they let it go. Of course, this bothered me a lot. I couldn't get used to it. Then I lost contact with those beings. But instead, I got this ability, this knowledge. That is through a process we call transference. It takes 7 to 8 hours.
What is being transferred?
The knowledge that I seek.
The esoteric science.
Yes, after that, the Holy Quran, at least the pronunciation of it, so that I can read it easily. Not in great detail, of course. I can't recite it. For example, 20 years ago, I didn't know Arabic. When I picked up a pen and paper, he would write to me.
In Arabic?
Of course he would write in Arabic. God bless him. Muhammad used to translate it for me.
Did they make you write this?
Of course.
What did they dictate?
He would write the answer to the question I asked.
What was the scariest thing you've ever experienced?
The scariest event doesn't seem scary to me now, because I've been used to it since I was a child, so there's no fear in a baby. I didn't experience such a thing, or I wasn't scared because I got used to it.
Then what was the most unusual event you experienced?
Experiences with demonic beings, for example. I could send them to people I was fighting with. I could harm that person. They were harming them in a visible and obvious way.
Physical harm?
Of course.
What was the cost?
Severe depression and anxiety.
How does this benefit them?
They use the energy in the human body. Anyway, what we call the jinn's reading of a person's brain, reading a person's thoughts, is an energy. They can read that energy.
Jinn, angel, devil, fallen angel. What are these?
Jinn means veiled. In other words, as described in the Holy Quran, it means veiled, hidden. Now, if we categorize them, Ifrit is a type of jinn. They have demons, marids, erva, avamir, hadim, hudam. Of course, hadim and hudam are a bit abstract. There are a number of verses, prayers, esmas, that they are in charge of, that they are connected to. Ifrits and marids are the most fierce. They are classified within the category of jinns. Then there are demons. Demons are rare in Turkey. They are the ones Solomon ruled over. They are summoned with 72 magic spells.
72 spells?
There are some drawings that we use. For example, pentagram drawings. Of course, there are Hebrew writings around them. They are summoned with them. These are dangerous things. They cause serious problems. When they are summoned, they can lead to death.
Like jinns, is it also possible to communicate with angels?
To make contact with the angels assigned by Allah is something that can be achieved by advancing very far in Sufism. This is not possible in our science. But you can communicate with the angels who are in charge of the verse. You can communicate with fallen angels.
Are you a charlatan?
To be a charlatan, you have to deceive and cheat people. There must be complaints against that person. Legal proceedings have to be initiated. So if I have these things, then I'm a charlatan. I never experienced such a thing.
Is there good money in this business?
The various dimensions of the work that we practice are quite costly. For example, today you can buy saffron ink for 55 liras a gram. Rose oil must also be used. Oud oil is used. All of these are costly, so it's not cheap. In order to write a page of text, you need to spend 150 liras, give or take.
Is it possible to earn good money?
I am not actively doing this job, so the other party covers the cost. I don't make any profit. He sends the material. I write and prepare the work in return for the material. When a person applies for a second time, I try to help them free of charge.
So how do you make a living?
I have a printing company.
Have you done astral projection?
There is astral travel that you can achieve through your own efforts. That is, through parapsychological practices. You can also do it with the help of jinns. For instance, the chapter of Al-Isra. A person who recites it can travel astrally. When you use carrot juice regularly, it removes the negativity in your brain. It removes the obstacles to astral projection. For example, crowreed, mimosa flower, or harmal seeds. These make it easier to astral travel by activating DMT in the brain. I've done it myself, with the help of jinns.
Where did you travel to?
I can't say this or that place, but I was curious about Thailand, so I went there. I was very curious about Japan, so I went there.
Was there telekinesis?
Moving objects using mental power, through energy or waves emitted by the brain. Yes, there are people who do these things.
Is there evil eye?
It's the rays emanating from the brain. If you look at a person for 90 seconds without blinking your eyes, it affects them. Your intention is also important, though. The evil eye already has symptoms at some parts in the body. It looks like a bluish vein, but that is the stain of the evil eye. It disappears over time. Of course, for this, verses 51, 52, 53 of Surat al-Qalam must be read. But in fact, if the whole thing is recited, there will be no trace of the evil eye, by Allah's permission.
What was the most exaggerated thing you saw?
It was all quite ordinary to me.
What was the most extraordinary, the most unusual thing you have experienced?
Being able to read people's minds. Of course, this was through jinns. For example, they could transfer people's thoughts to me. He would say, "That person is doing this and that." I did it to someone the other day. I told that person what he didn't want to tell me at that moment. What was a secret between him and someone else? He said, "I don't want to see you. I don't want to meet you alone." He said, "I'm scared." So some people are afraid of these things.
Do you follow science? Do you practice your profession in the light of science?
I follow it partially. The work of our science is usually associated with alternative medicine. So alternative medicine and psychological personal development. We apply all of these together as a combined method to individuals.
Can jinns foresee the future?
Absolutely not. The Holy Quran is also against that. Only Allah knows the future. Now let me explain it like this. One goes to a fortune teller who promises to see the future. He tells him that in 10 years, you will go to Germany. You will have an accident in Germany. This is the brand and the color of the car that will hit you. This is the name of the driver. You don't have anything like going to Germany in your mind now. The jinn who tells you this, who tells the fortune teller, finds people around you whom you cannot say no. He makes them all attack you. You get convinced. Of course, the jinn also has a role here. You go to Germany. He finds that person. He finds that brand of car. He makes you have an accident there. You say in the hospital, "Look, I had seen a fortune teller 10 years ago. He told me about this situation, but this is a scenario."
Is fortune telling an invitation to jinns?
Now, not everyone can tell fortunes. People who are haunted by jinns usually do. If I give you a coffee cup, can you read it? Can the cameraman read it? No. People who are in contact with jinns can read. And this contact does not necessarily mean seeing or hearing. They speak emotionally as well. There is a telepathic connection.
Isn't what you do illegal?
Now, if a law were to be passed, if it were done legally, it would at least be purified from underground practices and charlatanism. Is it being done today? Yes. Those who are certified as spiritual counselors or astrology experts can do it. But of course, they cannot fully practice this science because the law does not allow it. For example, reading. The law does not accept this. And writing amulets. I am also against amulets. Instead of amulets, do it by reading or praying. So now when he wears the amulet, he thinks he has a protector. When you say that, you're already stepping away from religion. The treatment has no use then. Legalizing this would actually be the most appropriate thing, because people are getting sicker day by day. I mean, some of them don't even know that they are sick.